There comes a point in your life when you must stop chasing, and stop lowering yourself just to be seen. Because the truth is, if they can't see your value when you're silent, they never deserved your voice when you're loud. You attract what you are, not what. It's a principle that challenges the very way most people approach life. We're told to chase our dreams, to go after what we want, to be aggressive and hungry. But what if the very act of chasing is the reason we never catch it? What if everything we're pursuing is simply reflecting what we are not yet? This idea flips the narrative and puts the responsibility back on us, not to run harder, but to grow. Because in the end, what you're after is not something you catch, it's something you become aligned. If you want peace, you have to become peace. If you want love, you have to be love. People often chase relationships thinking, if I just show them how much I care, they'll see my worth. But that mindset is built on scarcity. It assumes you are not already valuable, so you must prove yourself. But people don't stay because you convince them. They stay because of how they feel about themselves when they're around you. And if your energy is rooted in need, in lack, in desperation, they will eventually pull away, even if they can't explain why. Same is true for opportunities. If you're constantly hustling but not growing, you're just running in circles. You can only attract high-level opportunities when you become a high-level version of yourself. That means investing in your mindset, your character, your skills, and most importantly, your sense of self-worth. When your value is internal, not dependent on outcomes, you begin to radiate something different. People notice. Doors open, not because you begged, but because you became. Attraction is quiet, it's magnetic, it doesn't beg, it doesn't convince, it simply is. Think about a lighthouse. It doesn't run up and down the shore trying to guide the ships. It just stands there, solid and bright. And the ships come because the light is consistent and strong. That's what it means to stop chasing and start becoming. The truth is, chasing is exhausting. It's rooted in fear. Fear that if you don't act now, you'll miss your chance. But purpose has no deadline. The right people, the right moments, the right breakthroughs, they don't respond to panic, they respond to preparation. And when you're prepared, you don't chase. You wait, you attract, you receive. This doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. It means you shift your focus. Instead of trying to manipulate the world outside you, work on the world inside you. Heal the parts of you that feel not enough. Strengthen the parts of you that are growing. Replace your craving for attention with a craving for alignment. When you do this, you won't need to pursue people or things to feel worthy. You'll already be enough. So ask yourself, what am I attracting right now? Not what do I want. What am I drawing in by the way I live, the way I think, the way I treat myself? Because the world is not giving you what you beg for. It's mirroring back what you believe about yourself. Become someone who naturally draws in what you once had to chase. Because the goal is never to catch something just to prove your worth. The goal is to grow into someone who no longer questions. Self-respect sets the tone for all relationships. Not just the romantic ones. Not just your friendships, all of them. Professional, familial, casual interactions, and most importantly, the relationship you have with yourself. Because how you treat yourself teaches others how to treat you. People mirror the energy you bring. If you respect your time, your boundaries, your values, others are more likely to do the same. But if you constantly tolerate being disrespected just to keep the peace, you slowly lose your voice and eventually your identity. The most dangerous thing you can do in any relationship is compromise your self-respect in exchange for connection. Yet many people do this without realizing it. They stay quiet when something bothers them. They say yes when they want to say no. They overextend themselves, hoping that being nice enough will earn them love or loyalty. But the truth is, if someone only values you when you shrink, it's not connection, it's control. There's a major difference between being kind and being a doormat. Kindness has strength. It's a choice. It comes from a full place. But people-pleasing often comes from fear, a fear of abandonment, rejection, or being seen as difficult. But let me be clear. Every time you choose to betray yourself to keep someone else, you teach them that your needs don't matter. And once you've set that precedent, it's hard to undo. You can't be mad at someone for crossing a boundary you never enforced. So the reason self-respect matters so deeply is because it creates a filter. It keeps the wrong people out and allows the right people to stay. When you respect yourself, you naturally repel manipulation, guilt-tripping, and emotional games. You stop tolerating half-effort and inconsistent energy. You stop explaining your worth and start expecting people to recognize it on their own. And that shift, when it happens, is powerful. You no longer chase closure from someone who ghosted you. You no longer beg someone to stay when their actions show they've already left. You stop over-explaining your decisions to people who were never invested in your well-being. You realize that not everyone deserves access to you, because access to you is a privilege, not a right. Some people will say you've changed, that you become distant, cold, or selfish, but what really happened is you stopped being available for your own disrespect. You stopped allowing guilt to control your loyalty. You started choosing peace over people who thrive in chaos. That's not selfishness, it's self-respect. Here's the truth. The quality of your relationships will never exceed the quality of the relationship you have with yourself. If you don't think you're worthy of love, tolerate being treated like an option. If you don't value your own time, you'll allow others to waste. If you don't believe your voice matters, you'll accept silence when you deserve clarity. Every boundary you set, every standard you hold, every no you say with your chest, that's not rejection, that's alignment. Respect doesn't mean being perfect, it means being honest. Honest about your needs, your limits, your values. It means knowing when to walk away, not to punish someone, but to protect your peace. Because peace is expensive, and you only earn it when you stop giving discounts to people who never paid full price for your presence. So remember, the relationship you have with others will always be a reflection of the one you have with yourself. You want people to treat you better, start treating yourself better first. When you respect yourself fully, you won't have to demand respect from anyone. It will simply become the standard. Unreachability is not arrogance, it's focus. In a world that celebrates constant availability, where instant replies and endless access are expected, choosing to be unreachable can look like distance or even pride, but it's not about thinking you're better than others, it's about knowing what matters more than being liked. It's about choosing depth over distraction, intention over noise. When you decide to protect your time, energy, and mental clarity, you begin to understand that unreachability is a form of discipline. People often confuse being busy with being important. But true focus doesn't just fill your schedule, it filters it. When you are truly focused, you stop explaining your absence. You stop apologizing for not being accessible to everything and everyone, because you realize that your time and attention are your most valuable currencies. And the more you give them away freely, the less they're respected. There's a silent strength in choosing to be unreachable, not out of ego, but out of alignment. You can't build something meaningful if you're constantly available to meaningless things. You can't grow if you're always reacting. You can't lead if you're always distracted. Focus requires saying no to 1,000 things so you can say yes to the one thing that actually moves your life. Unreachability doesn't mean cutting people off or isolating yourself. It means you've created a filter for what deserves your energy. You stop picking up every call, responding to every message, showing up to every gathering, not because you don't care, but because you care too much about your purpose, your peace, and the future you're building. The most focused people in the world are not cold. They don't have time to explain why they're not responding to drama, gossip, or shallow conversations. They're not ignoring anyone out of spite. They're prioritizing. And that's something most people won't understand until they're also building something that requires silence, solitude, and self-respect. There's a myth that in order to be liked, you must be constantly available. But availability is not a reflection of love. It's often a reflection of poor boundaries. The people who truly respect you will never demand constant access. They will understand that your absence isn't rejection. It reflects your way of staying centered so you can show up fully when it matters most. Focus makes you look different. It makes you act different. It makes you feel different. You become more intentional with who you let into your life, what conversations you entertain, and what environments you allow yourself to be in. You stop explaining your goals to people who don't get them. You stop seeking validation from people who haven't built anything themselves. You stop wasting time on proving yourself and start spending time becoming yourself. People might not like your unavailability. They might say you've changed, but the truth is, you just stopped living at their level of urgency. You stopped reacting and started creating. You stopped participating in things that drain you. You started guarding your focus like it's sacred, because it is. In a noisy world, focus is rare, and what is rare becomes valuable. When you become unreachable to everything that distracts you, you become magnetic to everything that aligns with you. Success isn't built in chaos, it's built in clarity. And clarity requires separation. So no, you're not arrogant, you're not rude, you're focused. And in this world, that's one of the most misunderstood and powerful decisions you can make. Desperation is loud, confidence is silent. You can hear the difference in the way people speak, see it in their actions, and feel it in their presence. Desperation tries to prove something. It demands attention, validation, and approval. It over-explains, over-apologizes, and overcompensates. It's frantic, messy, and exhausting, both to carry and to witness. Confidence, on the other hand, doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't chase applause. It simply is. Desperation is fueled by fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being unseen, fear of not being enough. It shows up when someone doesn't believe in their own worth, so they try to earn it externally. You see it when someone begs to be chosen, when they talk too much to fill silence, when they constantly remind others of what they bring to the table. They speak not to connect, but to convince. But true confidence doesn't need to convince anyone. It knows its own value, even when no one is clapping. Confidence is quiet because it's rooted in security. When you are secure in who you are, you don't need to be the loudest in the room. You don't need to dominate conversations or flaunt your accomplishments. You can let others talk. You can listen. You can walk away from what doesn't serve you without needing to be understood. Because confidence doesn't need closure. It doesn't beg for clarity where there is none. It accepts what is and chooses peace over pride. In relationships, this dynamic is especially clear. Desperation clings. It texts back instantly, panics over delayed responses, and reads silence as rejection. It overgives in hopes of being appreciated, but confidence allows space. It doesn't rush to fill every gap. Trust that what's meant will remain, and that needing less often attracts. Confidence doesn't fear the absence of others. It respects its own presence enough to stand alone if needed. Your goals and career, desperation shows up when you chase every opportunity without try to be everything to everyone. When you accept roles, deals, or treatment far beneath your potential just because you're afraid nothing better will come. But that mindset only creates more scarcity, because desperation communicates that you don't believe in your own path, so why should anyone else? Confidence waits. It builds. It prepares in silence. It doesn't need to broadcast its every move. It knows that real growth happens behind the scenes, that results speak louder than updates, that the ones doing the most rarely talk. You don't see the roots growing, but they are. You don't see the sculptor's process, but the statue is being formed. Confidence is built in those hidden moments, the ones no one claps for. Patience screams, "Please notice me." Confidence whispers, "I am already enough." And that shift from noise to knowing changes everything. It changes how you walk into rooms. It changes how you handle rejection. It changes how you see yourself when things fall apart. Confidence says, even if I lose, I'm still worthy. Desperation says, I need a win, or I have nothing. So if you find yourself being loud, frantic, or constantly proving to yourself, what am I afraid they won't see? Then turn inward. Start building that thing for yourself, within yourself. Because when you know who you are, you stop chasing, you stop begging, you stop explaining. And that silence, that stillness, that's not weak. That's the quiet power of someone who no longer needs to shout to be heard. Your time is your currency. Spend it like you mean it. Every second you give away, every moment you invest, every hour you dedicate, you are spending something you can never get back. Time is the one resource you can't earn more of. You can rebuild your finances, recover from setbacks, even repair relationships. But once a moment is gone, it's gone forever. That's why how you spend your time says more about your values than any words you speak. People don't realize how expensive their habits are. They waste hours scrolling through meaningless content, engaging in empty conversations, or staying in situations that drain them but just because something is comfortable doesn't mean it's worth the cost. And if you're not intentional, your life will be filled with things that have little return on investment. People who take more than they give, tasks that lead nowhere, and distractions disguised. We live in a world that glamorizes hustle, but undervalues purpose. Being busy has become a badge of honor, even if what you're busy doing leads nowhere. But being busy and being intentional are not the same. One drains you, the other builds you. One fills your calendar, the other fuels your growth. You don't get paid in hours. So the question isn't how much time do I have, or it's what am I building with the time I've been given? You have to become the accountant of your own time. Audit your days like your future depends on it, because it does. Who's getting the best of you? Who's getting too much of you? What habits are stealing your potential in quiet, invisible ways? When you ask these questions honestly, you begin to realize that time is not something you manage. It's something you protect. Don't spend your time proving your worth to people who won't even notice when you disappear. Don't invest hours in pleasing everyone except yourself. Don't burn your energy on paths that aren't aligned with where you want to go. Start treating your time like it's sacred, because it is. Every second is a seed, and the way you plant those seeds determines the life you harvest. So stop giving away your most valuable currency to things that don't pay you back in growth, peace, or purpose. Live like your time matters, because when you do, everything around you starts to rise to meet that standard. The goal is not to be liked, it's to be respected. For most of our lives, we're conditioned to believe that being liked is everything. We're taught to avoid conflict, to make people comfortable, to smile even when we're uncomfortable. We learn to shrink ourselves just enough so we don't offend, to blend in so we don't stand out too much. And in the process, we begin trading authenticity for approval. But here's the truth. Being liked is fleeting. Being respected is lasting. Being liked is often about being agreeable, being easy to digest, being who people want you to be, even if it's not who you truly are. It's about saying yes when you mean no, laughing at jokes you don't find funny, tolerating treatment you don't deserve. But the more you prioritize being liked, the more you lose touch with yourself. And at some point, you'll look around and realize that people like the version of you you've performed, not the person you really are. Respect, on the other hand, doesn't require performance. It doesn't demand perfection or constant approval. It is earned through consistency, clarity, and conviction. When people respect you, it's not because you always made them comfortable. It's because you stood for something, you drew a line, you had standards and kept them, even when it was inconvenient, even when it made you unpopular. Respect comes when you value yourself enough to walk away from what doesn't align. It comes when you communicate your boundaries without apology. It comes when you stop tolerating the bare minimum. Respect is quiet. It's not loud or boastful. It doesn't need applause. It just is. And it's built in the moments where you choose truth over being liked, integrity over fitting in. People might not like you for being honest, direct, or firm, especially if they've benefited from your silence in the past. But that's okay. Respect sometimes costs popularity. Not everyone will celebrate your growth. Not everyone will applaud your standards. And not everyone will stay when you stop bending. But the ones who matter, the ones who are aligned with who you really are, they will not only respect you for it, they'll rise to meet you there. There's a difference between being kind and being liked. You can be kind and still have strong boundaries. You can be compassionate and still say no. You can be loving and still hold people accountable. Being respected doesn't mean being cold. It means being clear. It means showing up with integrity, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. People don't respect those who constantly they may use them, they may like the convenience, but they don't respect them. Respect is earned when you live with principle, when you follow through, when your words match your actions, and more importantly, when you respect yourself, others take notice. You teach people how to treat you through the standards you keep, the boundaries you enforce, and the energy you allow into your space. So let go of the need to be universally liked. It's impossible. And more importantly, it's not the goal. The people who make real impact, who lead, who inspire, they are not always liked. But they are always respected because they didn't come to play a part. They came to be real. Respect is built over time, but it starts with one decision, the decision to stop diluting yourself to fit into spaces you've outgrown. You're not here to be liked by everyone. You're here to be true to yourself. And when you do that relentlessly, you may not be everyone's favorite, but you'll be unforgettable.